We welcome in Tosin Makinde, a soccer analyst, to help make sense a little bit about what happened last night. Tosin, good morning. How are you doing on this Tuesday?
Morning, Jack. Doing well. How about yourself?
Hey, we're doing fantastic considering what happened last night with the 4-1 beatdown. And I want to start there, Tosin, because that was a tough loss where the United States made 3 errors that led directly to 3 Belgium goals. It just was a lackluster performance, to put it nicely. What was your reaction to the loss last night for the U.S. men's national team?
I think that they faced a buzzsaw in the fact of obviously the build up into the game with what happened with Balogun, and then I think Belgium must have taken that personally, and USA was sort of frazzled. You could kind of see from the first minute that this was not going to be their day, and I think that what really changed it, I think an hour before, and I saw the lineup, I was like, oh, Belgium's coach realized what he has to do against, USA, which was get more runners in midfield and put KDB on the bench. And it worked to perfection. So I think given what happened with Balogun and also the way that Belgium's coach saw things, it was just a culmination of things.
It felt like the U.S. just could not figure their way through the midfield last night. Like, Dest just seemed to be out of sorts at times on the attack. Pulisic just seemed to be out of sorts. The whole team just felt like they were out of sorts, really. What was it that Belgium was doing that really just seemed to confuse the United States?
They just had more legs in midfield. Rudy Garcia decided, you know what, I'm going to replace KDB. I'm going to do it on who unfortunately tore his ACL. And they just have more legs in midfield. They look hungrier. They also put Luca Bayo on the right, and had Trossard on the left. And they also had Charles Ketelare up top. But they just sort of understood what USA was trying to do with their pressing, and they figured out a way to just press them high, and it frazzled them. It really just frazzled them. And I think that this is sort of a thing about Pochettino teams. You've seen them throughout the years, that as great as they press, is also a weakness to them, and Rudy Garcia exposed that.
So, I mean, now the talk on social media, of course, that it's just overreaction after overreaction after overreaction. Where do you land on where U.S. soccer goes from here, and how last night kind of plays a part in that?
I'm always going to be on the optimistic side. I think that I have such a unique relationship with the U.S. men's national team and U.S. soccer in general. I played in the youth system here. I've gotten to see some amazing talents. I mean, I've seen kids who got their debut at Dortmund from Jurgen Klopp. I've seen kids who at 11, 12 years old, went to Marseille, and I've, personally friends with people like this. So I'm always on the side that there's always been talent in this country. I think what this country has to do is realize how talented these kids are and invest in these kids early, and not just in an athletic way, but also in a footballing way. You saw it yesterday with Trossard, who's all of 5'8" and 145 pounds, but they couldn't touch him, and U.S. has to realize that it's more about technical skills and athleticism when it comes to this sport. You're seeing it through Norway, who has, yes, they have athletes, but they have a bunch of technical guys on their team. And you're seeing it with Morocco. You're seeing it with all these countries, that they have a level of understanding the game, and that's where U.S. needs to go next. I think there's always going to be optimism for me, because when you look at what they just built in Atlanta, they finally have an HQ, which is similar to Clairefontaine, and they've always had academy systems here in America. I just think that now is trying to get rid of the pay-to-play and trying to understand how to get the talented kids and really, really understand how to get them to be more technical. But I'm going to be optimistic always. I understand that, it's doom and gloom, and yes, we haven't done this and got past the quarterfinals since 2002, but you have to be optimistic. If not, then what's the point of watching the sport?
Tosin Makinde joining us on this Tuesday morning. And Tosin, I'm glad that you're the optimist too, because I had a whole rant in the first hour being optimistic on it, because sure, it's a disappointing loss, but it just felt like they did some things they hadn't done before, winning the group stage in kind of an emphatic way where they're able to rest their starters for the Turkey A game, getting the knockout round win, albeit against a lesser Bosnian team. But correct me if I'm wrong here. It feels like for so long with the U.S. men's national team, we've always said, they should do this, and then they don't ever really perform up to expectations. This World Cup, it felt like we said they should do this, and then they did it and kind of exceeded it at times. And it just feels like they're on an upward trajectory. I'm right there with you on the optimism. Am I crazy for thinking about it that way?
Absolutely not. I think that when you look at the next generation of talent is coming through. There's a lot of talented kids that's playing their trade in Germany and Belgium, obviously some kids in MLS, USL. But you have to be eternally optimistic and hope, that they can continue to build on what they built in 2026 and hopefully continues in the Gold Cup, in the qualifiers, in the build up to 2030. There's 4 years from now. 4 years seems like it's not going to be it seems like a long time, but it's right around the corner. And you never know what sort of players pop up. No one thought Folarin Balogun was going to play for USA 4 years ago. So there's players that always come up. There's always talent that randomly run that comes through. It's just now, I think that as a nation, this is where the hunger has to come in. And this is where people have to come in and realize, hey, there is an opportunity here and there is talent here. So I think you should be wildly optimistic about the future of this country. I mean, the grassroots programs are changing. You're starting to see, like I said, the academy system has changed, and you're starting to see the headquarters in Atlanta. So, yeah, be optimistic. There's talent here. There's a lot of it.
Tosin Makinde joining us on this Tuesday morning. So, overall, we've kind of dabbled on it here and there. Overall, how would you grade this World Cup performance for the United States?
I would say a C+. I think what really frustrated me, and I know we don't want to really get into that, is the whole interference with the president and the red card decision and seeing that. And I also think, for me, some of the casual fans do get a bit annoying. I do understand the optimism and I do understand the passion, but it does get annoying when people repeat just nonsensical tropes about if our best athletes played and things like that. I think on the pitch is a good performance. I think off the pitch there are some things that do need to improve. But overall, I mean, the future is bright. The team is pretty young. The core is there. Obviously, replace some players. But when you look at the likes of, Alex Freeman and Malik Tillman, and you look at others, Chris Richards and such, the future is bright. You can't be too sad about what happened. USA are not, on the level of a Belgium. When you look at the team of Belgium, most of those guys are playing Champions League week in and week out. So should be optimistic. But, you played against the Asian Belgian team that was motivated, and they saw what happened, and they wanted to put up a fight.
So now looking at the bracket as a whole, have your thoughts changed at all on who the teams to beat are?
Nope. I said it 4 years ago, and I say it today, it's still France. And France, again, is a shining example of what happens when you fail. I'm not sure people know that France, up until the 80s, were really just a team that nobody really took seriously. I mean, they won the 84 Euros, but other than that, France kept struggling. They qualified for World Cup 1994, and now here they are as the dominant team, and obviously that comes with investment and that comes with restructure. They built Clairefontaine in 1988, so I still think France are the team to beat, and they're also an example of what to do whenever your team needs to rejig and refigure out what you're doing on the national level.
Tosin Makinde joining us on this Tuesday morning. Yeah, I mean, France gives all of the United States fans and supporters a bit of hope because, now and then they just so happen to have arguably the best player in the world in Mbappe, who just makes everyone look foolish. Looking at the rest of the bracket, too, there is a team that I'm very interested in, and it's Morocco. They finished fourth in the last World Cup. They had that dominant 3-0 win over Canada. Are they a threat to win it? Do you think they can make it further than they made it last year or last World Cup? Getting further means getting to the final. They play France next. I think the issue with Morocco right now is they're missing arguably the best attacker in Sabiri. They don't really have a nice striker like that. They have a lot of talented players in midfield and defense, but if you're missing your best attacker against a team like France, it's going to be a very, very tough day for you, especially France, to me, has the best center-back pairing in the whole World Cup. I think William Saliba goes under the radar, especially at Arsenal with Gabriel's right next to him. But Upamecano has been very good this tournament. And I think a lot of love needs to go to France's midfield. The pivot of Tchouaméni and Rabiot has been very, very good to me. They do their job, which is basically shuffle people out of the way, and they let the front four do their thing. So I think with Morocco, they can go far, but Morocco also coming against a buzzsaw in France. But it's football. It's all about matchups. It's all about timing, and it's all about luck sometimes. Look what happened with USA and Belgium. We want to go back to that. But I do think Morocco has a lot going for them. But I just think that it's a little too soon, especially with Sabiri having a hamstring injury. It's tough. Does it worry you at all? And I know Paraguay kind of mucked the game up a little bit on Saturday, but does it worry you at all that France only had the 1-0 win over Paraguay? Are they gettable, or was that just kind of the matchup and just kind of how the thing unfolded?
It's both. I mean, France has their weak spots. I'm not too, enthralled with their fullbacks. I think Jules Koundé is not that good, and I also think that Lucas Digne gives me a lot of panic. But also at the same time, it's all about matchups, right? Paraguay came to that game wanting to muddy up the game, wanting to dirty up. But I think that what people forget is that a lot of these French boys are from they're from they're from the Banlieues. They're from these places where you get kicked to the high heavens. Like, this is what you do when you're playing in the streets, like these French kids do. And at least they grew up in London. Like, you get kicked week in and week out. So for them, that's nothing to them. I mean, you saw Mbappe when, he held his composure. He laughed at them, and these boys aren't scared of getting tackled. Ligue 1 is a place where you're going to get kicked, you're going to get elbowed, you're going to get pushed and shoved. So they have it in them to play dirty. They can outplay you as well. I think going against Morocco, these boys also know each other as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the matchups between the two. But no, it doesn't really bother me with the way that they played against Paraguay. You got to do what you got to do to win.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they got the 1-0 win. So they continue on, and Paraguay's back home. Last question here, Tosin, before we let you go. Back to the U.S. men's national team. The status of Pochettino has been kind of up in the air. He was rumored to go to AC Milan, then not. Now he seems that he wants to stick around. Blah, blah. There just seems to be a lot of question marks around Pochettino. Do you think the U.S. Federation should bring him back? Where do you think they go coaching-wise moving forward?
I mean, I think you should bring him back. If he wants to stay, keep him. If not, I'm always a big proponent, especially international teams. I think that you should get a coach from your nation. I think that is my biggest thing always, is get a coach from your nation, get a coach from somebody who understands what your country's about. Each country has their own individual quirks about them. And if you get a coach who understands that, that's the best thing. But I think if Pochettino wants to stay, why not? He's been great for U.S. in the World Cup, and he knows the players now. The players know him, and it's a continuation. See what can happen in 4 years. But, if he doesn't want to stay, I'm sure there are other coaches who might want to coach. Maybe Thierry Henry might want to coach. He has a very good relationship with America. So who knows? I think that is an exciting job to take the U.S. men's national team job. I think that the Federation understands what they need to do. So, if Pochettino doesn't want to stay, do not be alarmed. There's other coaches who want to take over this job as well.
Perfect. Tosin, appreciate your time. We'll catch up again soon as the World Cup continues on. Even without the United States in it, there are still so many great matchups that we can keep an eye on. Always appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
You too, Jack. Take care.